Welcome to the Friday edition of Kelly and Company with Ramya Amathan and a couple other people who are joining us. Number one, we're going to be talking blind tech news, what's going on right now, what we should be potentially looking forward to with Stephen Scott, host of Double Tap on AMI, and what brand new series are yet to come on AMI TV and AMI Plus, what projects have been greenlit for development. Greg David, our communication specialist, is going to talk TV with us in a bit. Secret information that not even the media knows about yet. We're the first ones. Let's get it going.
This is Kelly and Company.
Okay, Nisreen, we have you here for a bit. We have Stephen Scott from Double Tap here for a bit. We want to talk about blind tech highlights. Stephen, why would you do that? Didn't you want to talk about anything different?
Why would you
Oh,
do that?
come on. What else can I talk about? What do you want me to talk about? I said to you, I'll talk about anything you want. What do you want to talk about? Come on, Rami, get off your chest.
I did pitch that you talk about tech that isn't blind, and you said no, sorry.
No, I'm not
Which is
interested.
why you're beefing
You
with Apple
rejected
again?
your idea.
Blind.
What's going on?
Don't corner me with that mainstream nonsense. I want to talk about blind things.
That's right, exactly. Okay, what are these blind things we're talking about? What's going on?
Well, look, there's lots to talk about, right? I mean, honestly, where to start in the world of assistive tech? There's so much going on. And I don't know how much of it passes everyone else by. You know, we talk about it on the show every day, but I know a lot of these stories just drift by people. Google have had a huge event in the last week, and a lot of stuff came out of that, including my interest in possibly moving to Android, which kind of shocked the world when I announced that. Because
Really?
honestly, well, look, I'll be honest, I think that the iPhone is great, but it's lacking in intelligence at the moment, in particular, Apple intelligence. And it'd be kind of nice if there was an alternative out there. And there is. It's called Google.
So what are they doing? Like they're just more freely adapting all the AI intelligence stuff into their models that Apple isn't? Or what's the draw here?
Yeah. So on the surface, I think, on the sort of everyday stuff that we all use, Google have announced TalkBack 16 for blind people. So, you can get more features coming up, actually coming out now. You can get it right away if you've got your Android phone, depending on which version of Android you're on and also which phone you've got. But I've got a Pixel 5 right here, which is ancient. I mean, kids would laugh if they saw this. So, the Pixel 5 is getting TalkBack 16, which is really cool. And in there, Google's Gemini, which is like Apple Intelligence, like OpenAI's ChatGPT, those kind of products we've heard about. Essentially, these LLMs, large language models. Gemini is Google's product, and it's now built into TalkBack. And we were able to get image descriptions from last year. This year, they are implementing image descriptions with follow-up mode, so you can ask questions about the image. So the one example in the TalkBack tutorial is there's a Burmese mountain dog sitting on on some, well, that's the point, right? You're sitting on something, and you can question what the something is, and you can say, well, tell me more about the color of the dog, and tell me more what those colors mean to someone who's never seen color before, kind of thing. And it's really, really cool. So you've got that on the surface level. Then you've got the future side of it, which is where Ira, the visual interpretation company, who a lot of people in our world will know about, because it's a company you can call up, you can get an agent who's paid, who's professional, who can help you with many, many tasks. Imagine we took the human away and we put AI in. Well, that's what Project Astra from Google is all about. And this is a project which is using the latest AI. So you can use the camera at the back of your phone and you can talk to the AI like we've done with lots of these chatbots nowadays, you can do. But it can help you see things. It can see for you. And there's a great discussion about, okay, so what does that mean? What does it do for humans? Now, IRA are saying, and it's very important to say this, that in this early testing, humans will be involved in this process. So they'll be watching along to make sure that what the AI is doing is correct. But
Okay.
it's kind of an interesting time with all this, right?
Well, first of all, you can't talk about anything without bringing up how we're implementing AI into our own experience of it, right? Like even just down to, you're comparing Gemini to ChatGPT to Apple Intelligence. And I'm thinking, yeah, who does it better? Gemini does better with the research aspects of it, but maybe not as intuitively communicating as the generic ChatGPT. So stuff like that, like we're doing so much deep dive into the language models and preferences. But should we also be debating still about the ethics of it, or have we passed that now?
Oh,
Mm.
I've given up on that, right? I mean, yeah. I mean, come on. We've given up on we've given up on privacy. We've given up
I'm
on
not asking about your
ethics.
personal stance.
I
Your
think you
own
got
ethics.
it.
Yeah, Nasreen, how about you? Like, are you worried about any aspect of this? Is there a gnawing feeling about, well, I don't know if I want to just completely leave my trust into the hands of the AI, seeing things on behalf of me through my camera and telling me, yeah,
Yeah,
this is the world.
that's the thing I was gonna ask Stephen. Like, what balance would you like to see between AI, human involvement in visual interpretation? How much would you trust it? And I feel like I'm in that same boat of, you know, I would like to see 50-50 balance. I don't know. It's just we're just not used to that full visual interpretation from AI. So I think it'll give you guys like a bit of time to get used to. And yeah, that's just my feel of it. It's a bit weird. I would like to see a balance of both. But
Yeah. I'm
yeah,
with you on this, right? I mean, I think ultimately, we can't lose the humans yet. And when it comes to
yeah.
these kind of tasks, we do need the humans involved for now. But I think the problem is that we're getting to a point where the AI is getting so clever, and it's also becoming so real in its way of communicating with us. I mean, I was having a
Mhm.
conversation with my Windows Copilot the other day, and I'm just chatting with it, and I was trying to get something fixed on the phone, and I'm asking it, okay, how do I do this? And it's saying, okay, so what you do is this. And I'm like, that didn't work. Okay, hang on, we'll try something else. And I'm like, okay, don't
Mm.
get an attitude. But it's like the point is, it has a bit of that, right? It's no longer just a robot that's talking. Well, it is,
Yeah.
but it doesn't feel like a robot. And I think that's the interesting thing. We saw it in audiobooks. We're seeing it in audiobooks now, where more and more audiobooks are starting to be made available with AI voices. Audio description on television is becoming
Yeah.
more likely to
Yeah.
be audio described, and we're not noticing. That's the interesting thing. A
So
lot of us aren't noticing it.
so you
Well,
do feel
here's the
like AI with Astra like can reach the same level of nuance and empathy that human agents provide when describing visual environments? Do you feel
Well,
that?
that comes coupled. I do think that's the case, but I think it comes coupled with something else, and that's trust. I don't think we have
Mm.
full trust yet, because if you
Yeah.
talk to an
can't
AI
though.
agent, if you talk to well, I mean, it can get there eventually, but it's not there
I
yet.
mean,
And
I disagree. I think that there always has to be a human involved because when you're talking trust, okay, we can have the illusion of trust because it talks to us like another human being. It sounds like another human being, even with the voices, right? Like
mm,
you can't tell anymore with the AI audiobooks if it's a real human or not. So that's one thing that just gets to us, like that gut feeling of talking to a human. But what there's a difference between asking Google or Gemini or who'd you say you're using on Windows how to fix
Copilot,
your
yeah.
computer, right?
Hmm.
Versus, hey, do I look good in this dress? And then it's like, of course it does. And then it gives you factual reasons or supporting arguments why. But that's not the same as the trust I've built with my mom or my brother, and they know my taste, I know their taste, they
Hmm.
know how I'm interpreting the world with my vision condition uh, versus
Yeah,
the
but
AI.
that's if you've got the mum and the brother to ask, that's great. But what
Yes.
about those people who live alone? How do they do that? How do they get into that kind of world? And how do they get
Yeah.
the answer? I
That's
mean, look,
fair.
at the end of the day, you're right. I mean, and look, it's all subjective, right? My mum
Mhm.
would be is the most honest person in the world. She would tell me that looks hideous. You cannot go out looking like that. Don't even think about it. So
Yeah.
that's fine.
Right.
You get plenty of people who just want to please everybody, and it's the people pleasers, right? Who say, "Oh, you look amazing." Everyone else is going,
Yeah.
"Did she really wear that?" So it's like you gotta kind of take that as subjective, and I think the AI will get to a point where it will kind of base itself on fashion advice. It'll base itself on current trends, and I guess if you're going out dressing up for the night or whatever, you probably want to know if you're on
Yeah.
trend.
Yeah,
Doesn't
that's
Yeah.
happen to
fair.
me very
And
often, I
it'll
will
tell
say.
you. And
Mm.
speaking of that, can you tell us about the second highlight before Nazi leaves us?
Sure. So my other thing I wanted to bring up is InnoSearch. So here's a question for you: do you want a service, a shopping service, built for blind people, or would you rather that we didn't have that and actually we just pushed the Amazons and the Walmarts and the Targets and whoever else in the world to make sure their online space is fully accessible?
Mm.
So you're saying just a strictly blind people accessible experience,
Well, this is the kind of
shopping
challenge
experience.
that, yeah. So Inner Search came along kind of out of the blue, and it's using AI. No surprise there, because everything else is. But it's using AI, and essentially it's a shopping service for online purchases, and it's fully accessible to blind people. And they've really made sure that from the ground up this works for blind people. So someone with a screen reader, someone who's low vision, and it has an Ask AI function. So if you want to know some questions about or some answers about a product. You know, you may be buying a Bluetooth speaker, for example, and you want to know, does it have a headphone jack in it? You can actually put that in there. You can actually ask the question and get the results back because it's scanning the images attached to the
Mhm.
product, and it can actually tell you the answer to that, which is really cool. You're not going to get that
That's
anywhere else at
impressive.
the moment. It
That's
is.
impressive. I would take
And
that. Yeah.
I would too. I would too.
What's the issue that we're creating like a secluded world
Blind
kind
Island
of thing? And then
is the phrase that comes up a
yeah,
lot on our
no,
show.
yes, yes.
And you know, I don't know. I'd quite like to holiday in Blind Island. I don't know if I'd want to live there. And I think the thing is, you know, ultimately, there's a lot of debate on this online at the minute. A lot of social media debate around whether or not it's a good idea to have a service like this. I think it is a good idea because ultimately, it's we can't wait forever to buy products for, you know, other companies to pull their finger out the backside and actually make something accessible, right? We want to shop, we want to buy things, and I want to do it the easiest way possible. If I have to fight with a website or an app to do something, I'm just not going to do it.
Again. Yeah.
So, you know,
Absolutely. Like, I mean, I can barely wait a second and a half longer for one AI to give me something versus another. You know, I've already moved
mhm,
on. So yeah, we're not
exactly.
fighting anymore. And it's kind of like that concept of somebody's there to bridge the gap, right? Like there's these sleeves you put on any cards to make them accessible, no matter who you're playing with, that kind of thing. It's like when I could turn on voiceover on anybody's phone and know that it's going to be accessible because it's iPhone. But are we um in this shopping service example, are they curating? You know, are they taking all the Amazons and the other places and putting their products up on this site, or is it just
Yeah.
going to be whoever opts in?
Well, it's a bit of both actually. So you've got a lot of opt-in, but they are curating. They are working with companies, and interestingly, and this is the bit that kind of surprised me, more so in the US and Canada, less so where I am in the UK. But there's a lot of those mom and pop stores that are selling online that perhaps
Yeah.
don't have particularly great websites, and they are pushing their products into Inner Search, and that is making it possible to navigate not just Amazon, not just eBay, but many other stores. I think they've got like,
Yep.
I can't remember how many it is. It's like thousands and thousands of stores are on this. And it's so cool to be able to not only check the different products and perhaps even similar products, but different pricing as well. You can see the
Mhm.
deals, which again, you know, if we were to try and navigate 15 different websites to do that, there's no
Yeah.
guarantee A, we'd manage it, or B, we'd be able to check out in any of them. And these are the challenges. So I'm for this. I think it's a great idea, but I do hear the voices saying, well, you know, does this let Amazon or the others off the hook? I don't think it does. I think two things can be true at the same time. I think we can continue to push for more accessible websites, but I do think what InnerSearch have done here by building for blind and disabled people from the ground up should actually be something that other companies need to take a long, hard look at to see the value
Yeah.
of us as customers.
Well, at the least, this will be a stopgap until those companies do what we need them to do, those bigger
Absolutely.
monopolies, right?
Yeah.
But the other question is then doesn't that kind of isn't that kind of a sore spot for longevity then? Because we kind of know if they can do it, if InnerSearch can do it, then everybody else can. And it shouldn't take that much extra effort, as especially with all the AI assistants and everything else now, AI chat bots and built-in experience. So, you know, if how long can this kind of service last before everybody else says, "Oh, too much of a competition here," and we can just slap
Yeah.
all the stuff necessary onto our sites?
Here's the thing. We got an email in on today's show, which I think says a lot, frankly. And it had nothing to do with tech, which is a fairly common refrain over a double tap. But it
Mhm.
was a lovely story from listener Eleanor, who told us that she was asking someone the other day for directions. And the guy told her what the directions were. Unfortunately, he was on his knees at the time telling the guide dog.
Mm.
I think, you know, if we're at that stage in life where people are telling the dog the directions to travel and not the human attached, I think we have a long way to go. And, you know, you could say,
Fair.
well, that's one
Fair.
individual and, you know, there's lots of idiots in the world. That's true. but there seems to be an awful lot of them we tend to meet. And they're not all idiots either. That's the thing. These are rational people with rational thoughts. But when it comes to blindness, there's a lot of people out there thinking we're still useless and incapable. So how do you beat past all that?
That's and honestly a great and fair point. Like, we still have, like, we can talk about these bigger picture scenarios and everything that's getting better and better, Stephen. But yeah, we all, turn off our microphones and cameras and still experience all the blind, annoying things and annoying things for people with disabilities every single day, right? Out on the streets
Yep.
and whatever else in our homes. So yeah, you're right. I'm still complaining about having to read mail. So things
Fair
are
enough.
not as good as. Okay, tell me about sign language, things going on there.
Yeah, so again, Google announced this rather quietly, and it did surprise a few people. Sign Gemma is the name of a new service they're working on, which essentially allows people who speak or talk using sign language to be able to be seen by a camera, and then that can be relayed and turned into text. Now, we've seen examples of this in the past. When I was at Zero Project Conference last year in Vienna, we saw some startups that were doing this kind of thing. It seems Google have either bought into that idea or just decided to do it themselves. I'm not sure which way around it is, but the point is that they are developing this kind of technology into the smartphone. So I, for example, used to work in a place where it was a sensory center where a number of different people were there with sensory impairments, including being deaf, including being blind. And one thing that was very interesting, in that the blind people never talked to the deaf people, and the deaf people never talked to the blind people because communication was almost impossible between us.
Right.
So imagine this kind of technology making that possible, right? We always talk about translation tech, being able to speak to someone in Japan. Great. I don't know that many Japanese people, to my knowledge. And if I do, they're probably speaking English to me, right? So that's okay, unless I'm in Japan, obviously. But I'm thinking more kind of closer to home and communicating with people around me who I cannot currently communicate with, and deaf people are one of them. So it's an interesting tie here.
Yeah, it is. A lot of this kind of bridging the gap, even with the translation, it's gotten so real time. With something like this, do you see any other parallels? Like, translation is the obvious one, but with sign language to text, I don't know exactly what I'm trying to touch on here, but I remember when Braille screen input came out, and people who thought like Braille was buried and gone were elated. Like, I swear people were just coming out of everywhere being like, oh great, Braille's back, right? It was like a comeback for Braille when the iPhone adopted it. So was there something like that you thought of, like, this is, it definitely brings people together?
Yeah, well, I mean, the one example I think of was a company I met at CES in Amsterdam, which was a fantastic event. It's against startups who were coming up with these ideas. And one guy who was losing his voice, he had lost a significant amount of his voice, and he was able to, he only could whisper. That's all he could do was whisper. And so he built this company called Whisper, without the E in it. And because that's cool these days, right? You take the E out and
Right,
then
of
it's
course.
Whisper. Sounds good.
Take all the vowels
Anyway,
out.
so
Need them.
yeah. So he developed this thing, and all you do is you whisper into the phone. If that's all you can do, you can talk into the phone, whisper into it, and it will translate on the other end of the call to a full voice for the other person to hear. That is life-changing for people. And there's a lot of people who you will literally never hear from. I mean that in a kind of part joke and part serious. You will never hear from these people. They'll never be able to tell you the story of this. But the fact is that suddenly you've opened up the door for all these different groups of people to communicate. And it's AI that's at the heart of this. So when people say AI is bad and it's going to kill us all, yeah, it probably will. But you know what? We'll have a good time on the way, it seems. That's the good news.
It's pretty great. Greg, I'm going to bring Greg on in here, Greg David, our communication specialist here at AMI, to kind of chime in on this as well, because I think it's really cool. And like you've pointed out a lot of different parallels. But Greg, what are your thoughts on this thing, especially on maybe the ethical dilemma of it?
Well, it's tough, and it was interesting to listen to the conversation because I know that Stephen and Sean have this kind of discussion all the time on Double Tap, and it's always fascinating to hear them talk about it. When it comes to AI specifically for me, I've seen a change in something as simple as writing a press release. It used to be in the old school days of print journalism that I came out with a certificate for, that I had to put together the headline, the lead, all that information, the boilerplate, and now you can just type in a few words and it puts something together. And in a way, it's great because it means less quote unquote work on my part. But on the other hand, like, what's my journalism degree worth then if a computer can write a press release that could arguably be better than something that I could write? So I like the ease of it, but also when it comes to the human knowledge or the human skills involved, that scares me a little bit. The human creativity, it all scares me a little bit. But again, there are ways that AI is being used all the time on a daily basis that I have absolutely no problem with. So clearly, I'm conflicted.
This seems to be a regular, what do you call it? Feedback, right, Stephen?
Yeah.
People being like, we don't know.
Yeah, and I think
We don't know
that's
where
a
to sit
fair
on it.
point. There's so many examples of that, and it's funny because, like you say, Greg, the whole thing here is, what is this going to do to jobs? What does it do to my degree? The reality is, we have to be honest, it's sucking up all the things that we've all been writing and saying for years and building that into its brain. So really, it's just regurgitating back in some way what we've all fed into it over time. That's the challenge, I guess, for a lot of us. It's going to have a huge impact on jobs, no doubt, and it's going to have a huge impact on careers. I hope that AI will be used in the next 10 to 20 years in more of an assistant form. I imagine that is how it's going to work. I feel it's a little bit like the way driverless cars are being brought in. A little bit at a time. Suddenly the car can brake by itself, and now it can do cruise control by itself. And now you can handle it on the highway. But we're not quite a fully fledged self-driving yet. But you can see it getting there. You can see it it's almost training us to get used to it. And that's the kind of way it seems to be heading here. But, I think it's great. I think, I can proofread documents now. I can spell check things. I can do things I couldn't do before. Not perfect. You can't trust it 100%. You still got to check things. And you shouldn't rely on it 100%. If you're taking a test, don't use it to write the report or write the answer, because people know. That's the other thing, Greg, right? You can use it for a press release, but you're still working on that, right? You're not just taking whatever it gives you and putting it out there, because you have to check these things, right? You have to also take the word delve and recognize and various other words that it seems to keep spitting out every single time it does this.
The end dashes. Get rid of them.
Oh, yeah, get shot at
that. Stephen, thank you so much. Always informative and opinionated. Appreciate it.
You're very kind. Thank you.
Take care. Stephen Scott on Double Tap. That's on AMI, and you can catch the show on podcasts as well. But speaking of shows, Greg David, we got to get through your list because you join us, first of all, every other Friday to talk TV entertainment. And this time you have news on upcoming AMI TV and AMI Plus series, as well as a peek into series that are in development for 2025-26, the broadcast season. So we had Jenny Bovard on with us recently on the show, and she talked about Pretty Blind. This is a new series coming to AMI Plus and AMI TV on July 9th. What other new series can people check out this year?
Yeah, I mean, there's several coming up in June. We've got a couple. One is called Caller of Duty Kids, and it is viewers that tune into AMI TV and AMI Plus on June the 23rd are going to find pairings between children and service animals. And these aren't just dogs. These are parrots. These are horses. I was just talking to the production company a few days ago, and they mentioned turkeys and chickens, which you don't particularly think of service animal, feathered service animals, parrots included. So that'll be a really interesting show, and the first kind of kids show that we've ever done here at AMI. So that's coming up. We've also got a documentary called King Arthur's Night coming on June the 27th. And it's a documentary film that's inspired by a medieval musical play created by a company of artists with and without Down syndrome. And so it goes behind the scenes on the writing and the production and then the filming of this play, King Arthur's Night. So a real peek behind the curtain if you're interested in how plays get put together and how they're written and the costuming and all that. You can check out King Arthur's Night later on in June. And then the last kind of show aside from Pretty Blind is a new reality documentary series called Underdog Inc. that's kicking off on July the 11th. And that's following Dale Christensen. And he's a little person, and he was also a star of the Discovery show Backroad Truckers. And on Underdog Inc., we follow Dale as he navigates life in a mountain town. He balances the challenges of fatherhood and runs a trucking business on the treacherous back roads of Western Canada. So, Discovery kind of programming coming over to AMI and telling the story of Dale. From the rough cuts that I've seen of the episodes, I think that this is going to be a real hit with our audience and a little bit of a crossover of the type of programming that we've got that usually we have on AMI. So that's what's coming as we kind of head into the new broadcast season.
Brand new. Exactly. Okay, sounds good. I'm really looking forward to Caller of Duty Kids, especially the conversations around like service animals versus emotional support, or the overlap of these experiences. And we're talking kids, right? And kids with disabilities. So there will be a lot to learn for a lot of us. What is coming back?
So for the next broadcast season, which kicks off this September, we've got season 10 of Our Community. We've got season 2 of Game Changers with Dave Brown, which just kicked off its first season a few weeks ago. So we know that season 2 of Game Changers is going to be coming. We've also got season 2 of Got Game, which is 20-somethings sitting down and playing board games and talking about life. They all identify as members of the disability community, so we're excited about that. We just filmed a brand new all-access comedy special, the third one, so that'll be coming up in the next broadcast season, along with season 2.
Do you remember any of the comedians off the top of your head? They're so
I knew you were going to ask me that, and I don't off the top of my head. But I'll send you an email, and maybe we can get a mention. But certainly there will be a press release coming out before the broadcast of that.
Okay.
Yeah. So the third one will be coming out for that. Season 2 of Pretty Blind, season 2 of Crip Trip, a second season of Underdog Inc. will be coming next year. And we've got 3 new shows that I wanted to mention quickly that are going to be coming next year. And one is called Adapting. And this is a sitcom. It's a scripted sitcom. It takes a heartwarming and raw look at disability, adolescence, and the minefield of family dynamics, dysfunction, and all. It's based on a concept by father-daughter writing duo Rachel Ransom and Garner Ransom. And the series is inspired by Rachel's real-life experience with cerebral palsy. And it's a long overdue, unfiltered look at disability. We've touched on cerebral palsy in some episodes of our shows, but this is our first ever scripted series that delves with that in a very funny way. So really looking forward to the first season of Adapting. And we've also got a new show called History in 60. And a friend of the show, John Lepke, is going to be part of this show. He is going to dig into a moment of disability history and take on the challenge of fitting it all into 1 minute. He's going to introduce a topic and dive into that topic and investigate a trailblazer in that area of disability history. That could be talking with experts or showing archival footage. There could be animation as well. So kind of like the History Minute that's out there telling you about Canadian history, but this is Canadian history from the disability angle. So that's very unique and really interesting. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, that sounds wonderful. That's it, right? Was there one more show?
Got one more, if you don't mind. Paralympic champion Tyler Turner is part of a show called Breaking Boundaries, and he is going to be immersing himself in unfamiliar adaptive sports, learning from the elite athletes involved in those sports and redefining what's possible. So a little bit of got a sitcom, we got a little bit of history, and we got a little bit of sports coming in new shows in the new year.
Yeah, some familiar faces, some brand new faces, but definitely some different angles on the disability conversations that we could be having at AMI. Greg, thank you so much for the update. I'm looking forward to finding out who's in the third All Access Comedy Special.
I'll get that for you. Thanks, Ramya.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Greg David is our communications specialist here at AMI, and he joins us every other week on Friday. Well, that is a wrap for Friday, but when you join us back on Monday, we will be in a brand new month. We got an update or two for you, and Kelly MacDonald will be back, so you can come back as well. Then we have Ask a Vet with Dr. Danielle Johnkind, and nutritionist Julia Karanchis will join us as well. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you then.
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly and Company. Follow us on all social media, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.